to say a big thank you to you, Franklin, for being here today. And as I'm sure we'll talk lots about, you bring a wealth of experience from many years of working with people in HR from across sectors, IT, financial services and beyond. And I very much look forward to hearing about that. I'm Dr. Patrina Carmody, a chartered psychologist, consultant and coach, and I've spent the last 2 decades or so supporting organisations to drive their cultures forward. So I'm very excited to hear your story and the richness of our conversation today. And for everybody who's very kindly joined us, we are going to talk about the critical role of reimagining HR with a focus on HR and technology and the interplay between the two. Our plan is to talk for about 45 minutes between the two of us, and we invite you to prepare your questions for the last 15 minutes when we'll answer as many as we can. And as you think of questions, we'd invite you to type them into the chat and we'll pick them up at the end. I hope that works nicely. So to get us started, Franklin, please could you introduce yourself?
Great, super. Thank you so much, Patrina. Just to check around the room if everyone can hear.
Very good.
Again, just to check around the room, can you just do thumbs up? Can you hear loud and clear? Can you hear us? Just so we're sure that we're not just speaking to ourselves, Patrina.
Fabulous. We seem to be having some thumbs up. Thank you.
Great. Super. Okay. I mean, to keep it simple, my name is Franklin. Ali is my surname. Currently work with the HR team at Interswitch. Again, I'll have an opportunity to go into the details of my career journey. So I'll just keep it simple for now. And that's Franklin. Thank you so much, guys, for joining the conversation.
Thanks, Franklin. And indeed, would you mind telling us a bit about your career to date and perhaps the key essence of your role for Interswitch Nigeria?
Okay. So I have been privileged to go around the full circle of what the entire HR function is. And I'm speaking working as a generalist, as well as working as a specialist. And, just to add very quickly, that will be across most of the industries in Nigeria today. I've had a stint with consulting, with banking, the financial sector, fast-moving consumer goods. Had a short stint as well in oil and gas, now doing tech. Interesting thing is, while I was in fast-moving consumer good, the company I was with at the time, we have, an interesting ecosystem in terms of verticals. So we had pharmaceutical, we had agriculture. So you can argue that, I've been around exploring HR across these different industries. Interesting thing is, I've also been privileged to work with very experienced HR leaders. Again, before I got to this point myself, and more importantly, is work on very exciting projects along the full scope of an employee value chain as far as HR is concerned. So again, very happy to go into specifics as we go on in the conversation, but that's really my journey, Patrina. I don't know if you have other questions.
No, as you say, Franklin, I'm sure it will come out as we share and talk through our conversation today. But I would really love to know what sort of gets you up in the morning, what excites you in the morning about work?
Okay. I'm trying to find a way to make this look like a conversation instead of an interview. You asked a question. You asked a question around my role in Interswitch. I think I skipped that.
Yeah.
So essentially, my role is in Interswitch, or at Interswitch, is an enabling role for the business. And what that means is that I work with business leaders, and that's what it has been over time. Work with business leaders to enable their businesses, of course, within the confines of the right governance, right system, right culture, essentially, without trying to go into the specifics of helping them to find the right talents, ensuring that, people are engaged, but everything that speaks to people. Again, important to mention how we carry out the role of an enabler, working with business leaders to deliver on their landing zone. That would be the summary of what my role is today. In terms of what excites me, I'm very unconventional. So you typically will find, especially because this conversation is Nigerian and African skewed, I imagine that there will be people joining international as well. But I'm driven by value. Um, I'm excited when there is a problem statement, when there is a need, right? So what wakes me up or gets me excited is the privilege and opportunity to create value, and design for impact. Yeah, I'll keep it at that. So whatever you bring my way, as long as it creates value, as long as it's designed, to make impact, I'm up for it.
So that's your motivation, and it's about the value creation. It's about a sense of having done something that other people value. And it is interesting that you used quite a few times the word enable or enabler as the way you see your role, or perhaps the role of HR, which I guess we'll find out shortly. But before we do get on to think perhaps about HR and technology, would you mind telling us a little bit, firstly, about Interswitch Nigeria, an organisation which very, very many of us will be familiar with from the outside perspective, but how would you sum it up in a sort of sentence or two?
Okay. Always excited at every opportunity to talk about Interswitch. Yeah, and I hope that Otamari and the likes will not bill me for this. So Interswitch by far will be one of the best places I have worked. And I say that for many reasons. And we have seen this feedback from a lot of people. There are so many data points that speaks to this. And this is not because I work here today in my role. This is because this is an organization that is very inclusive in their culture. This is an organization that creates the right opportunity for you. Again, one of the things we use very loosely at Interswitch is that we are an organization of head, hand, and heart.
Okay.
We are very inclusive, right? We want to solve problems, and I was going to use one of the famous definition we would use to describe Interswitch, which is Interswitch is an organization that is about solution and people. So we're very big on people. We're also very big on solution. If you've read about Interswitch, our vision, our purpose, you will know that we are not just an organization that is out to make profits. We are actually out to change the narrative about what Africa should be, what Africa is, what Africans can do for Africa and the world. And that's a larger than life organization. It's not just about, of course, in the process of doing all that, we have created, multiple job opportunities. We have created lifelong solutions that today is very pivotal to the economy of Nigeria, and I dare say Africa. So again, I can go on and on with the conversation about Interswitch. We do have a founder and a group managing director who is in many ways very unique in his style of leadership, very excited to give people opportunity, very keen of operates an open door policy. Please let me know when to stop so this doesn't look like an Interswitch conversation.
But no, it's lovely to just get that background, because I think later for everybody, we're intending to talk a little bit more about your experiences in context and perhaps in Switch. So it's lovely to have that flavour.
Great. The reason why I think it's very important, Patrina, to say this is because I believe that irrespective of the number of people joining this organization this afternoon, I think this is indeed a great conversation for Africa and for Nigeria. Yesterday, I was at a session organized by Deloitte, and we're discussing trends in HR. So I worked there as a panel member, and the insights and sharing and discussion from that session, got me thinking. And I thought, okay, maybe it'd be nice to bring in some of the learnings and insight into this conversation, because I believe that much more than just having a conversation, it is time to reawaken that spirit of value creation and impact in a lot of people. So this conversation may just be for one person listening, for two people, for an organization that is about to be birthed, for us to do great things. So that's why I think it's important to see how, to mention how Interswitch has been playing a role on this journey to empower Africa, and why this conversation should also inspire somebody to go on that journey.
Thank you so much, Franklin. And it sounds like Interswitch, you used wonderful words like larger than life. It's very much about people. It's inclusive. It's almost larger than life. It's a lovely phrase. Thank you. So today we thought that a good place to start is just thinking about HR. And I'm really interested, thinking our bold title was Reimagining HR. But may I start by just inviting you to share some thoughts, Franklin, on what do you see as the role of HR?
Okay. So HR has evolved, and this is a very personal question for me, because I've had all my entire career in HR. My background is not in HR by way of my university degree, but I've always been a people person. Famous story I will always share about my journey is I've always wanted to be a medical doctor and really looking out for people. I used to fantasize about traveling with the United Nations, go and treat people, tend to people. So it's always been about people for me.
Okay.
But long story short, I had to make a switch at some point. Nigerians will understand, you don't plan, Nigeria will plan you. Anyway, so Nigeria planned me. So I didn't make it to become a medical doctor. But I thought it was a blessing in disguise, because eventually I found myself in HR. So I stumbled on HR. But I've seen that HR has evolved. Again, a lot of HR people will be familiar with this conversation from the days of, basic personnel management, to talent management as we'll have it today, to people operations. HR has evolved, and that's the truth. And the role of HR has evolved based on need. But what I found in my little study and research is that evolution has been more reactive than proactive.
Okay. Could you tell me a bit more about what you mean?
Yeah. So if we understand the core of what HR should be doing, then I think the right thing to do and the best way HR can create value is to be proactive and be ahead of the business, because the enabling function of HR requires that they are ahead of the business. So you already have a sense of what organization need. You're already planning there was something I came up with my friend, your performance management curve. So you know what the business wants. You're already planning your performance management curve and working it back to where the organization is. So HR is supposed to be ahead. What we've seen, and I can use where we are currently as a perfect example. So over time, we have talked about VUCA. And for those who don't understand or who don't know, VUCA means it's how you describe the generality of an environment. It could be business related, it could be organization related. And it simply means, it talks about how the environment is vulnerable, business environment is vulnerable, how there's so much uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. I knew about this topic as far back as 10 years ago. So HR people would talk about VUCA. They would talk about, there's a lot of uncertainty, but what they did not do is that they didn't close the readiness gap. And I'm trying to answer your question around being proactive and reactive. Now, there's nothing different about COVID happening or what we are seeing today. VUCA predicted this uncertainty, this vulnerability, that our society were vulnerable. What has happened is that we did not prepare for it. We didn't take time out to envisage what are the likelihood of things that can happen. There was no prediction. Now, COVID was just a window for VUCA to bring out all the impact and things we're seeing today. What I thought should have been done differently is part of the reason why I think this conversation is very, very important, is that VUCA will continue to be a thing. The world of work will keep changing. HR will need to evolve. But the question is, are we evolving by reacting, or we're evolving by being proactive? So that's what I mean. Now, to answer your question directly, I think I have taken time out to see that the role of HR is not just to recruit for an organization. It's not just to manage your training requests or your leave requests. It's to look at it from a very strategic and, very, I dare say, and I'm trying not to use this word so that business owners don't feel you're trying to take over the table. But let me stick to enabling, right? HR is an enabler of, and like I said, I think we talked about this before, of organizational resilience. So if I use the current example of COVID, great attrition, a lot of organizations, this took us by surprise because we didn't build the right resilience that would have sustained us through this period. What HR should do is start building those systems, those policies that will be futuristic, that will be more proactive, that will make room. A good example, Petrina, is that what have we done about changing our strategy on recruitment? About advanced contracting. We only talk about these things, but we have not operationalized this thing. Very recently at one of our sessions, somebody talked about shadowing program. It's not sufficient to wait until you need talent before you make provision for them. The future will be you have a community or an ecosystem of workforce that can, make provision for you in the event that, there are uncertainties that will hit you as a business. Again, personal topic. This is what I think the role of HR should be. I can cascade this down to all these specific functions to say what HR should be doing in terms of enabling the business.
So actually, thank you. So actually thinking about our sort of starting point, reimagining HR, for you, the call to action to reimagine HR is to be more proactive and to keep a step ahead so that you're the enabler to help an organization be resilient when something happens in our VUCA world. So it's about not keeping up with the world, but it's keeping ahead so that you can be that enabler.
Correct. Correct.
So
Correct.
So if it's keeping ahead, there are sort of many different ways I could ask, how do we get there? But let's start with technology. So how can technology help with this? Help us to keep ahead and be proactive.
Okay. Before I go into how technology can help, something very important to talk about. So how can we keep ahead? So there's a trend report by, I think, McLean, Deloitte, and Gartner that we had researched on in recent times. And they're very insightful nuggets for a lot of HR people, and I'll recommend that we leverage on that report. One of the exciting things that was shared is the fact that one of the ways to look ahead is to find a way to frame our challenge. Our understanding of our problem statement is very, very critical. So what you've seen is that a lot of people have interpreted the problem statements differently, and they've applied global principles differently. So to even start with how do you stay ahead or provide intervention, how you frame the challenge, how you interpret the challenge becomes very important. Okay. Another thing that is very critical to do is a lot of HR organizations today do not understand that the age that we're in require a lot of design thinking and research. So the way Deloitte put it is that we are in an experimental age as HR. But what you'll find is that a lot of HR are still running on traditional structure with no reference to research, to design thinking, and then providing interventions with the current age. Now, to go straight to your question, how can technology accelerate or aid this staying ahead conversation? I think the first thing for me will be we must get the model right, right? Technology is not the intervention. Technology just accelerates the solution, right? If you have, I have a friend who, they had these chatbots that they designed, will almost function like ChatGPT. Before the launch of ChatGPT, they wanted to do something novel. They did it, they worked on it, but the model of what they've worked on was not quality enough. So, of course, they plugged in technology. They did all the technology details, but the system wasn't working. So they had to go back and start reworking the model. So you must get your model right. Whether you're trying to start up a tech organization or you're trying to do HR tech, what is important is your solution. So you must get your solution right. The role of tech is just to help you design the right architecture based on your solution and help you reach out and create the right experience for your customers.
Right. So it's not replacing us, it's doing part of our work, perhaps. And it's absolutely critical from your perspective that we as humans still take control and have the strategic vision and the initial aims and the outcome of where we want to get to, and use tech as a vehicle to make that quicker.
Correct. I think vehicle is the word. Yes, vehicle is the word, because definitely, I mean, tech is the future, and HR needs to key into that journey.
Okay, so yeah, and the vehicle, the essence of vehicle resonates. And is there anything else that you'd like to add about how tech does play a role versus how it should play a role in the HR sphere at the moment? And this might come out in a conversation, but I wonder if there's any headline thoughts on how we use HR now, tech in HR now, compared to how we should.
Okay, I would try to use some specific examples. So agility and speed is one of the behaviors we're seeing in terms of business model, time to turn around solution. Tech is the only thing that can match up the level of agility and speed that the business is demanding, right? We can't continue to leverage on, if I use recruitment, for example, how long it takes to do your traditional recruitment as against when the business needs those talents to be delivered. One of the things we are trying to explore at Interswitch is to say, is there a way we can use tech to redesign our recruitment process?
Okay.
From bridging the gap between the demand and supply to also selection process. So is it possible today to hire a talent in 24 hours? Now that's the role of tech in HR. Today, you find that a lot of companies, it will take them 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. So to buttress on the point and the role of tech, speed and agility is one of the ways that tech can enable a lot of things in HR. The experience for employees. So today you would find people have terrible and interesting candidate experience because a lot of the processes are still manual. Somebody may forget, but with tech, your ability to serve your candidates, provide on-time, real-time information, also carry them along in the process. They have access to a lot of information they need. Only tech can do that for you. I'll give you another example very quickly. So because of great attrition, knowledge management is a big issue today. Succession is a big issue today. So people leave with a body of knowledge. They leave your organization, your solution are not able to work because the guy who has the trade secret or the guy who designed the solution has left. One of the things that we are trying to explore at Interswitch is how do we use technology to realistic to ultimately own talents and not have them go. Again, the world is boundaryless. The world is talents are becoming mobile, and that's one of the new sentiments we are seeing today in trends. Now, one of the things we're doing today is to say, how do we leverage on tech to retain and replicate knowledge? So we came up with an idea called job role play profile. And what that simply means is that we want to create an AI profile for every role. That once you join the organization, what you're going to use as part of your onboarding is that AI tool that takes you through what the job is about. That AI tool retains the knowledge for that role. AI tool, they don't exit your organization. Again, you always have access to them. They're there. Again, only tech can help you in the real sense of it, minimize attrition, manage knowledge, but also help you to manage succession. And those are three critical things that are impacting a lot of business globally today.
So beautiful. So I'm hearing speed and efficiency. I'm hearing that tech can bring us that speed, yes, but also consistency of experience and can help keep knowledge within the organization. How do you still keep the wonderful human touch alongside it, the sort of nuances? If I join the role and I'm interacting with the AI and finding out about the concrete details of what happens, how do you maintain the sort of the human touch and the human essence of relationships alongside technology?
That's a very interesting question. I don't think the future is going to be, again, to keep it simple, the future is hybrid. And I know we've only used hybrid within the context of work model, but the future is hybrid. It's going to be co-creation between technology and humans. Um, just checking that you can still hear me. I think your video went up.
I can. Did my
Okay,
video go? I can hear you beautifully.
great,
But,
great.
yeah,
So the
thank
future
you.
is hybrid, Katrina. We can't have a world where it's an all AI world. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen because you need humans to even, build intelligence for AI. It's never going to happen, right? It's going to be a world where, like it's been predicted, AI machines will be your new colleagues, and you need to find a way to interact with them. For some cases, machines will report to you, and you would then need to give them instruction. Now, how do we then manage that interaction? I think it's a call for new skills. We need to start learning new skills and in terms of how to live with machines.
Yeah. Oh, we're breaking up slightly.
To
Franklin, can
work
you
with.
hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Now,
I
this is
can.
the
Can you hear me?
perfect example. Perfect. I can. Thank you. Just for a moment, we lost each other, I think. I hope everybody else is okay. Could somebody give us a thumbs up that you can hear both of us? Thank you, everybody. Fantastic.
Okay, great.
Thank you. So, yeah, I lost you at the exciting point where we were saying actually it's interaction between us and the machines, and it's, I think, perhaps understanding what different roles we might play and how we might face those new challenges. But I'll let you carry on.
Yeah. So it means that one of the ways to reinforce that interaction is we need to now start defining our policies with AI in mind. So our policies is no longer um, going to be human driven alone. We now need to start, putting into consideration the inclusion of AI into some of these policies. Culture becomes an issue. Yes, these are machines, but how do we interact with them? Because one of the shockers you will find is that some people may now undermine machines because, again, humans operate those machines, right? And jeopardize some of the operations to frustrate machines. So what you'll find is the same way humans frustrate humans on the job, humans will start frustrating machines just to create a different narrative about the existence of machine. So I think it's a time where we need to start thinking about the new skills and the new behaviors and what our policies should look like. How will this impact our budget conversation, manpower planning conversation? If we can bring all that into some of our annual plannings, I think we'll be able to, address some of the questions you had asked about interactions.
Yeah, so it's proactive again. It's proactively thinking about what do future relationships look like, and naturally, from the perspective of a psychologist, something that really interests me is the strong sense I have that trust and culture are going to be increasingly important. How we humans feel about each other and feel about the technology and feel about the interaction will mean that I would argue that part of the role of the evolving role of HR is to place more and more importance on how humans define their role and behaviours. So I think it's interesting to hear you also, I think, touch on that and say we have to think about how humans will impact on the machines as well as the other way around. So very interesting. And you mentioned a couple of examples of things that you've been on the journey with Interswitch Nigeria on the HR tech journey. And what would you say are the key benefits that you got from sort of actively embracing technology? I think you've mentioned perhaps consistency of keeping knowledge of talent within the or knowledge within the organization. I don't know whether there are any other benefits that you'd like to highlight.
Okay. I talked about, agility and speed, for the part where we've done some work. There are a couple of examples. The experience for, the HR staff and as well as the customer is totally different. You would find that one of the advantages will be solving real business issues, right? And I'm trying to find a way to, to explain this without necessarily, going into some of the details. So today, your business leader reach out to you to say, I need 5 people uh, within this period to be able to deliver on this product. And you're saying to this person, I'm not able to give you in 5 weeks. Based on what I have today, without technology, I can only do this in 8 weeks or in 2 months, as you'll find. But with technology, once this is accelerated and we go live, you're able to do this within a short time. So value for investment, value for resources becomes one of the key advantages, apart from speed and turnaround time. I talked about the experience for the individual, but the beauty for me, Petrina, ultimately is the fact that we're able to build an ecosystem that delivers real-time value. So, like I always say, the business is depending on HR. You go to the board, you present your budgets, you come back to management, you have this conversation. The next place people are turning to is their HR. I need people. How can you help me? For the people I have, I need to keep them. For the people I'm keeping, I need to ensure they're engaged. To be able to do that and build that ecosystem for seamless, workforce operation, I think technology is the only answer for us. Because again, you also don't want to shoot your headcount up without technology, obviously. So again, it will be agility and speed. It will be solving real business problems, time for value. It will be the overall experience for employees and for HR people themselves. That's how I would summarize it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And do you then see a time when HR could evolve to beyond HR to resource, which is human and machine? Or do
Sorry.
you feel, and I'm just thinking about what you said, do you foresee a time where at the moment we talk about HR, but do you foresee a time in the future when we might be thinking about resource? And that might be led by people, but it might also, the human might get dropped because in a sense, we're also thinking about machines and AI. Do you think the role of HR may change in that way? Or do you think, as Interswitch at the moment, that people are always going to be at the heart of it, that will always be the heart of it? Do you think, yeah.
I mean, I think it will vary from, it will be a bit of both, depending on the industry.
Mm.
Um, for some industry, you're not able to entirely take it away. So it'll be more of people. For us as Interswitch, it will always be about people.
Yes.
It will always be about people for us, again, just to keep it
Yes.
simple. But for some industries that are highly tech driven, I think you would have a bulk of that replacement again. But for
Yeah.
us in Interswitch, it will be more people.
Yeah, the people are very much at the heart of it. And what advice would you give others wishing to embrace technology in HR based on your learnings?
What advice would I give to people,
Others,
organization? Okay.
organizations wishing to, within HR, wishing to embrace technology, what advice would you give them?
I think the first thing to do is not to work in silos. Um, to have a view of the problem statement globally, and then cascade locally, and then finally look at how it's affecting your organization. Now, I don't see a world where everybody needs to now invent and do, adopt a different type of tech. The world that I see more is where we plug in, just the same way technology, developers would say, plug into APIs and whatnot. It is a world where we'll have a universal solution that creates that API for people to plug in. That's the type of world I see now. If your organization have the capability to build that universal solution, what you must get right is framing the challenge within the right perspective. Now, the way attrition will impact in the UK is not the way it will impact in Nigeria or in Africa. So you must get that interpretation right. You must be very in tune with the behavior and the sentiment of talent within your locality. You must be in tune of in terms of how people respond or will behave towards some of the solutions that you be putting in. So if I put that in a simple workflow or structure, is understanding global view, very important. Interpreting the problem in terms of how it works for you. Second thing is looking at what solution best work for you, which one do you have the capability to develop, and which one do you need to plug in based on an existing universal solution. What I think it's important to say is that we do have HR tech organizations. But what they have done is approach this more from an ERP standpoint, and then design based on, general principle. What I think, and, great job, I've seen exciting solution. We need to do differently, and I say that very carefully, is get the concept right in terms of what these problems are, because we have engaged quite a number of these tech companies and compatibility becomes an issue. The reality of where we are in terms of our problem statement becomes a mismatch. So it would be different recommendation or counsel for different organization,
Yes.
depending on your maturity level.
But really interesting that running through this, and we started by sort of saying that a lot of reimagining HR centered around the need to be proactive and a true enabler for the organizations that the HR looks after. But it's very interesting sort of, I feel that running through the sort of advice or thoughts that you would share is that we as humans and HR professionals have a key role, and forgive me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but have a key role in forming the problem statement and being strategic, and also thinking about the human implications of this technology that we apply. And yes, technology is a vehicle, but would you say it's only as good a vehicle as the humans make it in terms of being strategic and thinking about how it applies? Is that fair?
Correct.
I don't know. Yeah.
It would be spot
Mm.
on. It's only as good as a vehicle as we make it.
Mm.
It would be a fair point because it becomes a case of, computing. So I go to a developer, I go to a design person to say I have these products. I mean, they would only interpret it based on the solution that I'm bringing for them to sell. So you're right. It's only as good as the solution. So the emphasis should be what we need to get right is the solution, and create maturity levels for each solutions, because maturity of different organizations and their HR is totally different. Maybe in some cases industry specific as well. And I can speak for Africa. I'm not sure this is something we've gotten right. There are a few people who are now trying to do this differently, but I think that's where we are today.
Very good. Yeah. So there's no one size fits all, but it's really sounds like it's really knowing the culture and taking the time to be strategic. Thank you so much. I'm just looking at time, and I think we've perhaps got time for one or two more questions before we check in with everyone and see if they have questions for us. How would you say how do you in fact stay ahead of current thinking in technology and HR, because it's such a growing field, isn't it? So much out there. How do you stay ahead and stay on top of all that we're hearing?
I think it's how do you stay ahead? I'm trying to make sure I answer the question correctly. Okay, so how do I stay ahead as an HR organization? I think it's to build a master solution, because we can almost argue that we have, again, one of the things we do differently in Interswitch HR is we are constantly following through with trends, what's going on. We work with quite a number of consultants today, from KPMG to PwC to Deloitte to international partners. And we work with you guys, Great Place to Work, to McLean, all the way in Canada. So we try to keep ourselves abreast with global insights, local relevance. And we can say that our understanding of the problem statement is very clear. We have been able to frame it in such a way that, we think we are better positioned to design rather the master solution that can solve major industry HR problems. So I think it's to build the solution and keep updating based on insights we get from all our channels.
Very good. And yeah, keeping that big picture or master solution in mind, so that you're constantly thinking then whether something new is just new and exciting or new and valuable, I imagine. It's
And also working with the right partners, Petrina, would be a key factor.
Right.
I have seen that play out, very critically in a lot of the things that we do. When you have the right international partner or local partner that you're leveraging on some of the things they may have already done, so you don't need to reinvent the wheel, and you're just plugging in to recreate for Africa how it speaks to organizations in Nigeria. So working with the right partner would also be a way to stay ahead.
It's critical. Yeah, critical choice. Thank you. And just before we open up the floor to everybody else who's kindly been listening to us, I wondered, sort of stepping back, what, thinking about particularly your work with Interswitch Nigeria, what sort of top three, and it doesn't have to be three, but what top three things would you say you're most proud of from a HR perspective that make Interswitch Nigeria a great place to work? It might be one, it might be more, I don't know, but.
I think the first one for me would be our policies. Our policies are very people-centric. It would be our policies. And the second thing for me would be, of course, is related, will be the culture at Interswitch. So we are in the middle of a cultural refresh. It would be the culture. So we are constantly striving, not just to make sure that our culture is inclusive, but it's also very progressive. The new workforce ecosystem we have today is further complicated by the demography of workforce that we do have today. So it'll be a culture, it'll be the policies that we have today, and I dare say it would be the leadership that we have today in Interswitch, whether at the business level or at the HR level. So, there's nothing like having a leadership that wants to listen and hear you out. Nothing like having a leadership that's willing to accommodate new ideas, new ways of doing things. So I'll keep it at 3, hoping that there'll be more questions that speaks to that and I can shed some light.
Thank you so much, Franklin. Before we invite the others for questions, is there anything else that you would like to share?
Okay, so I mean, in a couple of days, Gartner, I'm sure a lot of people know Gartner on the call. They're having their annual conference, and interestingly, the theme of the conference is Reimagining HR. It further reinforces the conversation around the need to do things very differently, if you ask me. For so many reasons, there's a shift, like I said, in workforce demographics and composition. Excuse me. The behavior of employees we are seeing, the sentiment of employees, they're changing. So it's important for us to be aware and informed that there is need to reimagine HR. We need to do HR differently. There is a term a phrase, a Bible phrase, and a lot of people who are Christians will know this, and it's really about new wine in old wineskin. And the way I rephrase that is new times with old mindset. The need to reimagine is calling for new mindset in terms of how we do HR. And that goes all the way down to, is there a world where you can train people without necessarily going through the traditional, you request for training, I send you into a classroom, you must sit down there for 2 hours to learn. It goes as far as, I don't even need you. I can shortlist you as a candidate. You can go on a platform. If you're interested to work in Interswitch, you will see all the vacancies. You can take your interview with an AI panel and do your interview in minutes. Once you pass the assessment, do your interview. Your hiring manager gets the result. You can go through the result and say, hey, Petrina is my person. I want Petrina on my team. And then you just call. You can even go as far as seeing the offer for the role and have negotiation with AI to say this is not possible, this is possible. So it's a global conversation. This is not just about Great Place to Work putting this together. Gartner is having this conversation. Technology application and advances is one of the reasons why we need to reimagine. So today, a lot of our leadership team go to ChatGPT to query and ask questions. So they don't necessarily need to go to team members. They want to know about this, they go to ChatGPT. That's a major game changer. I don't want to go into the political and socioeconomic developments that we are seeing, even in Nigeria, as one of the influencers or triggers to reimagine HR. So if you're on the call, you're an HR professional, there is a need. The times are new. The mindset has to change if you must deliver value as HR. Final notes. I said yesterday during the Deloitte conference, I said to them, HR do not or should desist from the conversation of they want a voice at the table. I think where you deliver value, you'll be automatically invited to the table. We've laid a lot of emphasis on we need a voice, we need a voice. The real voice that organization, the real language that business organization or business environment understand is value. When you deliver value, you will get a voice automatically. So that's how I'd wrap up. Thank you so much, Petrina.
Oh, and you, Franklin, thank you so much. But yeah, very interesting. That's very, yes, the value piece. Don't ask, show your value, and yeah, and be proactive. Thank you so much, and so much more. I will pause myself there as well, and just invite the people who are kindly listening. Would anybody like to ask us any questions or share any thoughts of their own? If you'd like to type them into the chat, lovely. Or if you'd like to raise your hand, and then I will unmute whoever it is. Thank you, Victor. I'm just unmuting you. There we are. I've allowed the mic. I think you might still be muted, but please do share your question.
Franklin. Good afternoon, Petrina. Thank you so much for the insightful session. My question goes to Franklin. Franklin, what advice do you have for an HR professional who's literally setting up the HR department in a tech company from the scratch, looking at where HR is right now? What advice, resources, or tips could you share? I know it's more than this session, but what advice can you share to that guy starting up the HR department in a tech company right from scratch?
You need to come for consulting. I won't charge you a lot.
How do I come for consulting then?
I won't charge you. I won't charge you much. Okay, but I think just to keep it simple, and you're right, it's not a topic we can exhaust on the call. I think the first thing to do is to understand what your organization is set out to achieve. The reason and the why will determine the type of your takeoff point from a maturity standpoint. So don't look at the Interswitch of now and then try to model their structure. It will not be a right step in the right direction. So look at your organization. What are you guys trying to achieve? I'm sure you guys probably will have a long-term plan, 2 to 3 years, but if you walk that back to where you are today, what do you need? It's always important to always build the full picture, which is a 3-year plan, to say by 3 years, I will need X, Y, Z, I will need this to be in place, but walk that back to where you are today. The process of that would involve a lot of details that, again, time will not permit us to share. But I think the first thing is to understand the why of your organization. What do they need HR for? If there is a 3-year plan, in 3 years, what would they be needing HR for? Walk it back to where you are today and start from where you are. It may be, I just need a generalist function for year 1, but in future, I will need generalist specialist in this order. Again, that's the much I can say for now. I hope it was helpful.
Thank you very much, Franklin. How do I come for consulting then?
Thank you.
You can see, yeah, you can chat me up on LinkedIn, to be honest. I'm happy to have a conversation with you.
Oh,
thank you. Thank you very much, Franklin. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. We have a couple more questions, one in chat and one from someone who's kindly raised their hand. So if we start with Gloria's question, she's on chat. She says, thank you, Franklin, for the insights shared. 2 questions, if I may. The first one is, can you give us can you be practical on the ways technology can speed up recruitment in 22 hours? Are there, and I'm paraphrasing a little, Glory, so forgive me, can you share some platforms and AI that has helped? So yeah.
Okay, we are designing those platforms. It doesn't exist anywhere. We've seen the problem, we've seen the possibility, we think it's achievable. If in the past you are not able to, what you call, there was no Uber some 20 years ago. You can't order for a ride and then you get the ride online real time, they track you, they locate you. You know how it is to book a ride in Nigeria. But today it's a thing. So we've seen the possibility. We think that we can create a platform where if Petrina is looking to hire, a psychology intern, she can request, just like you request for Uber today. And then someone who is interested can indicate interest and then follow through the process of the person. AI then does the first check, assess the person, you do that interview there and then comes to Petrina. Petrina can take a decision to say, I like Gloria, come work for me. So it's possible. It's something we are working on. If you want to be a partner, again, you know what to do.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Franklin. And her second question is, you talked about how AI has supported knowledge management. How is this different from your usual job simulation training for new hires? Is there a specific technology you can share? Or again, I don't know if this is something you're doing internally. And while you're answering, Franklin, I'll see if I can unmute you, Glory, see how my ability stacks up there.
So again, to the next question, we have seen the problem. knowledge management, succession problem, retention problem has been as old as the HR function. A lot of methodologies have been deployed, some smart ideas, but these problems remain. We think that technology can be the answer, and is designing the right model and using technology to accelerate it. I gave an example of using AI as your new onboarding officer, so you don't necessarily need the person who is exiting the job to handhold or hand over. You can have a machine do that for you. But the process of institutionalizing that, of course, again, it's not something that we can exhaust here. So everybody would have, I'm not sure if I'm giving out too much information. So every job role, we have a mirror AI who would be like your pseudo self. I don't know how best to explain it, but that person is recording. There are some calls you will join today that you will have an AI member on the call. And what that person is doing is that they are taking note of everything going on the call. So if you need to do anything, you just need to go to that person. They'll play everything that you need to hear on the call. So that's the kind of future we're thinking and we're talking about, to say you are the head of products in your organization today, but there's an AI who is also the head of products. This person is doing everything you're doing. They know everything you're doing. By the time you're leaving the organization, you do the regular send forth, but no knowledge is lost, because if a new person comes in, that your AI version will be the one to do the onboarding and uphold that person. Again, that's the much I can say on the call. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Franklin.
Thank you so much, Dory. And I think we have time just perhaps for 1 minute for another final question before we hand over to Otomere from Great Place to Work to sum up for us. And Gabolahan, and I do hope I pronounced your name correctly. I've unmuted you if you'd like to share your question.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Franklin, thanks for the session. My name is Bolahan, so it's fine.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So I wanted to ask how we can create a balance between AI helping work and keeping the numbers of workers at work. I mean that, yes, so AI may begin to take over jobs. In fact, they're taking over jobs already. So how do we then, as HR people who want to get people employed actively, so I work with manufacturing, for example. I don't want to work in the tech space, and we work with people. But, with advancing technology, we envisage that in a few years to come, people will become obsolete in particular functions, right? In particular hands-on functions. So what do we do to keep unemployment employment high? We do not want to have unemployment rates increase. So how do we create that balance? Thank you very much for the time.
Interesting question. So, I mean, the age we are in, and that's our reality, we are reconceptualizing work. One of the trend reports from Deloitte is almost suggestive of the end of jobs, to say this is an era where jobs are ending, and it's an era where it's now a market for skills. So it's not a question of whether you're putting an end or trying to balance between AI and human. It's a question of who has what skill. So this terminology about new skills is not just a terminology. You need to position yourself, look for the relevant HR skills that will be required in the future, and you need to upskill and reskill where necessary. You need to have transferable skills and position yourself. The truth is that jobs will be cut down, but new jobs will be created, obviously. So it's about positioning. Unemployment and employment conversation, it's a different ball game entirely. If you take Africa, for example, we can spend another 1 hour talking about this, the number of jobs that have been created, number of organizations we have, the policies of the nation and how it supports job creation. I think it's a different conversation entirely, and I'm not sure Katrina has the patience to wait for them.
Well, I absolutely do, but I'm just mindful of everybody's time because we're on the hour, and I think it's such a central question that we could talk for hours. And I think we, as earlier in our conversation as well, we touched on it, didn't we, in terms of the fact that the critical thing about technology is about how we as humans apply it and how we interact with it, and perhaps it's about different roles for us. But I want to thank everybody so much this afternoon for being there for us, and for those who we were able to have time for the questions for, thank you. And I'm so sorry if we didn't have time to cover your questions, and a very big thank you to Franklin. But just to hand over, if I may, to you, Otemere, our leader of Great Place to Work, just to sum up for us and say a final word.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Excellent conversation. We're almost tempted to say, can we have at another time a session with Franklin so we can really delve deep into this conversation. It's been great having this session now. Indeed, we have what we see like an intersection between technology and human resources, and being able to apply both to effectively meet the needs and objectives of organizations is so critical. I dare say that the culture of organizations is still so relevant in this day and age. Even as technology becomes even more relevant, we're still going to see a need to have an enabling culture where trust is so critical. And so that's one of the things that will always remain, where as human beings, areas around trust, employee trust for management, employee trust for what they do on a daily basis, employee trust for themselves, even with regards to being able to embrace technology is so critical in this day and age. I want to say a big thank you, Franklin, once again for being part of this session. We have on the chat box a link where if you desire to be able to get know more about how your organization can be better positioned even in this day and age around technology, and how culture can be an enabler for what you do, kindly please copy the link on our chat box, and we'll be glad to reach out to you to provide greater insights. Our next session, interestingly, would be holding on the 12th of October this year. Going to be having another great speaker and also a very great company, great workplace too also. So we're looking forward to having that session on the 12th of October. Thank you very much once again for your time today. Continue to remember that trust is critical for what you do on a daily basis. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Franklin. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Petrina. Nice catching up. Thank you, everyone.
Very nice. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you, everybody.